here at Sinai, USC was playing Auburn, and there was no way that I was going to let you come here. And you had a busy schedule. I know there was practice, and you made it. Actually, I don't know if you know this because you were on the court, but I was watching the game. Bill Walton, of blessed memory, said during the broadcast, I believe it was with Roxy Bernstein, who was with you in Israel. He said, and Coach Bruce Pearl even went to Sinai Temple yesterday. And I thought that was just an amazing moment. I don't know how he knew. I don't know if you told him that you went to speak to the Jewish community or Roxy told him, but the fact that this message was getting out to the millions of people who just tuned in for a basketball game was the real deal. And so this is what you said at Sinai Temple when you addressed us.
Live and work in the African-American community because I'm a basketball coach. I live and work in the evangelical Christian community because I live in Alabama. And so one of the reasons why I took my team to Israel was because you hear so much from people when you go there. So what can we do? What can we do? Come visit. Come visit. And I did. And we were able to do some wonderful educational programs with our student athletes. They couldn't believe how welcome they were. They couldn't believe how diverse the country was. They couldn't believe how good the basketball was. And now they're going to come. They came back. And in fact, they played against Danny Avila, who's going to be playing here with the Clippers here shortly. And they've got a completely different way of looking at Israel. And
what was the reaction before they went? Was there a fear of their safety? What was it after? And then the third part, have you been in contact with any of those players post October 7th where they really understood the reality and the truth on the ground?
Well, I think because one of my goals as a Jewish man and a coach and a teacher is to bring people together. So, Rabbi, I didn't go to Hebrew school, Rabbi, and learn that Jesus was a rabbi his whole life. They didn't teach us that. And I know many of my Christian friends didn't go to, when they read the Bible, they didn't read about that either. And so obviously Jesus provided a huge separation for the faiths instead of some commonality in the faiths. And so for me, I'm speaking to my Christian players who know Jesus and believe in Jesus, but really don't know anything about how he lived his whole life and how he celebrated the festivals every year of his life and how he was a great rabbi. And to me, that connects us. That's what I do as a coach. I connect people. And so we went and we got our players that wanted to get baptized in the Jordan River.
Love that.
We went to the Garden of Gethsemane. We went to the Holocaust Museum. We went to the Wailing Wall. And when you go to Israel, that's what it can do for you. It can bring us all together if we choose, obviously, to look at it that way. There was some concerns of safety going from some of the parents, but there was more excitement from the parents because they vicariously got to go to the Holy Land, God's Holy Land, through their sons or through their nephews or through their grandsons. And so therefore they trusted me and they were able to overcome the fear. And when we were there, there were rockets coming into Tel Aviv from Gaza while we were there. They were shooting at us. And yet the Iron Dome kept us safe. How do the people in Auburn, Alabama feel about the fact that when their basketball team was over there on this mission that Islamic Jihad at the time was shooting rockets at Tel Aviv? And I'll tell you what, it gave our guys a different perspective about where do you go when you hear those sirens and how do you get in the hallways and do the things that you got to do to get to a safe spot. I didn't try to do much pre-trip to either teach or indoctrinate. We did a little bit so they could understand where they were going and what they were seeing.
Right.
Just wanted them to go experience it. And I wanted them, I'm a Jewish coach. They know the work that I do, but I didn't want to really do too much beforehand. And then, of course, they get off the plane. They go to the beaches of Tel Aviv. They see all the diversity. They see all the color. They see the different races. They see the different religions. They see the different lifestyles. And they go, there's not a place in the world that is more freer. I want to free Palestine. There's no place that's more freer than Israel. And so they then come back and they break down those stereotypes. They talk about the way they were treated. They talk about the experience. And it's interesting. Two of my players just signed to play with Jerusalem and
Oh, I
Matama
love it.
Hamilton's team. Yeah. And two of my former players. And I know that the fact that I took my team to Israel had something to do with their comfort level of going back to Israel and playing professionally now.
And post October 7th, was there any conversation when they saw were they outward speaking or on the campus or just having those meetings saying this is real?
Yeah, it was real and it was tragic, and they were upset by it. But what we try to do is we try to do something. And so within a couple of days, through our connection with Daniel Posner and Athletes for Israel, because Athletes for Israel, an amazing organization, Rabbi, you know what they do.
Yep. They're watching, actually. They contacted me yesterday.
Well, Athletes for Israel helped take my team over to Israel 3 years ago and sort of get the ball rolling. And then I got on their board and joined Daniel. A year ago, we took Arizona and Kansas State, not only to Israel, but to Abu Dhabi. And the United Arab Emirates and the Chamber of Commerce and the ambassador actually participated in supporting Athletes for Israel to take them over there and celebrate the Abraham Accords, celebrate normalization. The basketball teams that got on a plane from Tel Aviv to Abu Dhabi was the first time that had ever happened. And it can happen again and again and again. There is hope in the Middle East. The vast majority of the Gulf Arab states leadership, and slowly and surely the people there are recognizing that their lives are way better off if they could live in peace with the Jewish nation of Israel than if they choose otherwise. And unfortunately, our country needs to choose sides. They can't have it both ways. Iran is the enemy of the United States of America. It's the enemy of Israel. They've sworn that. And we've got to do everything to bankrupt Iran to the point that they can't fund all this terrorism. And we keep on making policy decisions based on politics. And we can't. And American Jewry, Rabbi, has got to wake up to the reality, regardless of party, we must support congressmen, senators, and presidents that are going to support and stand with Israel, because our Jewish life in America is at stake right now.
That is true.
As well as the survival of the state of Israel.
I want to just go to Tommy Lloyd for a second, because you're like the guy that would, of course, take your team to Israel, but Tommy's not. And so how do you convince a guy like that to actually do that? And he comes back, and hopefully when Arizona comes through California next time, he'll be able to stop at Sinai and, as somebody who's not Jewish, explain to us why he did that and really helped us.
Well, talk to the coaches at Arizona and Kansas State, and they will tell you they had the experience of a lifetime, as did their kids. It was just absolutely nothing like it, and he could hardly wait to go back. And those guys are all now advocates of the state of Israel. And so, if I encourage your listeners to look into the Athletes for Israel and look to support it. Because it's run very, very efficiently. And how about this? Like, you can have impact on having student athletes, the vast majority of whom in basketball are African American, and you can send them to Israel to see for themselves. And then they're going to come back to this country, and the vast majority of them are going to be great allies. And we and that's what we're doing. That's the work we're doing. And anybody that's listening can help.
I would love to pledge my support to help, and I know we have lots of Division I college basketball teams just sitting in this neighborhood. Maybe offline we'll chat about how we can make that happen as well. I just want to touch two things. One, the Olympics coming up, and Israel's going to be marching in. Obviously, every time Israel marches in, we have the reminiscence of the 1972 Munich Games and the massacre of those athletes. And now, of course, with some people saying Israel shouldn't even be on the Olympic stage. What does it mean when Israel marches into the opening stadiums in France, specifically this year, and saying not only should we be here, but we need to be here?
Rabbi, I don't really have an answer for that. I just don't. It just breaks my heart. I don't understand. I growing up in Boston, I didn't go to Boston University. I went to Boston College. And if you're from the East, you'd know what I meant. I went to a Jesuit school.
Yep.
I went to a Catholic school, and I was in sports. And being in sports and being at a Catholic school, I was always just trying to break down stereotypes. And I was just trying to be with my Christian or Catholic or non-Jewish friends and going, look, I am no better than you, but I am no worse.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, for the world to somehow treat Israel differently than they you know, obviously are treating anybody else. Again, I literally don't understand it. And I think a part of it is because they've been sold a lie and something that's just absolutely not true. Israel has 6 million Jews and 2 million Arabs living very, very well in the state of Israel. There is a population of the Palestinians that do not want to live in Israel as a Jewish state. They don't want to live with the Jews as a neighbor. They want to kick the Jews out. They want to kill the Jews. They want to rid that land of the Jewish people. There are very few Jews in Egypt. There are very few Jews in Morocco. There are very few Jews in Algeria or Libya or Lebanon or Jordan or Syria. Why? Because if they were there, they'd be put to death. They would be murdered. So I don't want to hear about genocide. I don't want to hear about apartheid. It is what it is, Rabbi. And here's what I suggest. We have got to live the best lives we can, being the best teachers, being the best friends, being the best American citizens, being the most generous, being the kindest, and representing and wearing our faith. And when we step out of line and we don't act accordingly, all we do is add to that stereotype and make it more difficult for our children and grandchildren. Be a mensch, be a mensch, be a mensch. There are people that are neutral, that are still undecided, that still don't know. And they are not going to take the sides of the extremists. You know what? My grandmother used to say, you know, let them gang. Let them go. We're not going to change how those crazy people feel about us. We just got to keep living our lives. We got to protect ourselves. And we got to try and change the people that are sort of undecided, if you will.